Everyone. My name is Jerry Schroeder. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Schroeder. I'm the Senior District Representative for Congresswoman Susie Lee. We are just getting started. Thank you for joining us for the IRS Tax Webinar. We're going to wait just another minute to see if there are other people who are in the process of joining. So we'll start here in about 30 seconds.
Thanks, all of my panelists for joining. Appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, Congresswoman, I think that we're ready to go.
Great. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, everyone, for joining me. I'm Congresswoman Susie Lee, and I wanted today, in lieu of tax season fast approaching, it's already here, take a minute to have an IRS webinar to help answer some questions on what we believe will be a complicated tax season for many people in 2021. These past 2 years have not been traditional tax years, and because of the pandemic, it was important for Congress to step up and help so many people across the country. The American Rescue Plan, which was signed into law by President Biden on March 11th, 2021, right in the middle of tax season, made a number of changes that already added some complexity to filing. This law included additional financial assistance, including a third round of the stimulus checks, as well as the refundable child tax credits. I've been hearing, as well as my team, from many constituents who are confused about how, when, and to file the 2021 tax returns. And I want to just to emphasize that we understand just how complicated it is. And so hopefully during this webinar, we can answer some of your questions. And fortunately, I have with me 3 experts and 3 people who've been on the front line who will be able to answer your questions. First and foremost, I have Brian Wozniak, who's the Congressional District Liaison for the IRS. I have Jeremy Oswald, who is the local Taxpayer Advocate, and Pat Smith from the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition. Thank you all 3 for being here to help people understand not just the changes, but what services you provide and how people can get their taxes done. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone who's tuned in here to please submit your questions. That's exactly why we're here. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible today. So I'm going to turn it now over to Brian and let him walk through what they can do to help you and any question, any questions you may have. Brian?
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you, Congresswoman Lee, for the opportunity to share this important information with your constituents. We'll move on to the next slide. On this screen, you will see a list of the topics we plan to cover this afternoon, and I'm going to start by discussing how you can get help filing taxes if you haven't filed yet. Then we'll go over some tax filing tips, and that includes using an irs.gov online account. We'll talk about economic impact payments and how they interact with the recovery rebate credit. Then a short conversation on the 2021 child tax credit and reconciling any advanced child tax credit payments you've received. And I'll conclude by discussing some recent changes to the earned income tax credit. Now, you may be wondering how you can get help filing your tax return this year. We'll move on to the next slide, please. If you have internet access and your income is below $73,000, you can use IRS Free File to prepare and file your tax return. The IRS Free File program is a public-private partnership between the IRS and many tax software leaders who provide their brand name products for free. So IRS Free File. Now, if you need personal assistance filing your tax return and your income is under $58,000, you can use our Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, often referred to as Vita, V-I-T-A, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. And you can find locations that offer in-person free tax return assistance. And then finally, if your income is above those amounts, or you have a more complex tax return, you can use our Choosing a Tax Professional tool to find the right tax return preparer to help you with your return. So now the next slide is titled Filing Tips and After You File. The first item explains that the tax filing due date for most 2021 individual federal tax returns is April 18th this year. And when you get ready to file, the second item on the slide, be sure that you file a complete and accurate tax return. And we highly recommend that you file electronically to avoid refund delays. Electronic filing is the safest and most accurate way to file a tax return. E-file returns, they have fewer errors, which means fewer delays. And if you have a tax refund, be sure to request direct deposit. Filing electronically and choosing direct deposit remains the fastest and safest way to file an accurate income tax return and receive a refund. And speaking of refunds, for those that file electronically, most refunds are sent in less than 21 days. Item 3 on the slide has a subset of bullets that explain some tax returns will take longer to process for many reasons, including when a tax return includes errors or if it is incomplete. Also, any taxpayers who were affected by identity theft or fraud may experience delays, or if certain forms are filed with the return. For example, if the return includes an injured spouse claim, they may be delayed, or if the return just needs further review in general. And the IRS will contact you by mail if additional information is needed to process your tax return. The last item on the slide, the Where's My Refund tool. This remains the best source of information to check the status of your refund. And that tool is updated daily, once a day, usually overnight. Next slide, please. This is titled Access Your Tax Records and View Your Account Online. You can use your IRS online account to securely access the latest information available about your federal tax account and to see information from your most recently filed tax return. Individuals who have not set up an online account can create an account to view their tax information online. And you can see there the second bullet, IRS publication 5533. That publication provides more information about online accounts. And taxpayers who have an online account, they can view the amounts of their economic impact payments received. You can access the Child Tax Credit Portal for information about your advanced child tax credit payments. You can view data from your most recent tax return and access your tax records and transcripts. You can view your payment history, up to 5 years of your payment history. If you're on a payment plan, you can view the details of that. Now, at the bottom of the screen, other options. If you don't want to establish an online account or are just looking for other options to get your tax records, you can order your transcripts over the phone or by mail or by submitting a form. It's a form 4506T. And for more information, you just need to visit or go to the web link that's listed on the slide there. And it will explain how to order transcripts over the phone or through the mail, et cetera. And please note that accessing your online account or requesting your transcripts can answer many of the questions that you might otherwise need to call the IRS to get assistance for. And of course, there is the Where's My Refund and the Where's My Amended online tools. Okay, let's go to the next slide and talk about the child tax credits. The 2021 child tax credit is $3,000 for qualifying children ages 6 through 17, and the credit is $3,600 for qualifying children ages 5 and under. Some individuals received half of this credit in advance with monthly payments that began last year between July and December. If you received those advanced child tax credit payments, then you will need to reconcile these payments with the total amount of the child tax credit that you can properly claim on your 2021 tax return. And it is very important that your return reflect the correct amount of your advance payments, because if it doesn't, otherwise your refund may be delayed. So if you received less than the amount that you're eligible for, you'll claim a credit for the remaining amount of the child tax credit on your 2021 return. If you received more than the amount that you're eligible for, you may need to repay some or all of those excess payments when you file. And if you did not receive any advanced child tax credit payments and you have qualifying dependent children, you will want to file a tax return for 2021 to claim this credit. And for those that received advance payments, the IRS recently mailed you a letter 6419. You see it there listed at the bottom of the slide. And that letter 6419 provides the total amount of advanced child tax credit payments that you received in 2021. And you will want to keep that letter, of course, with your tax records because you'll need to refer to it when you file. If for some reason you didn't or don't receive your letter, or if you think it's incorrect, you can use one of those other options that I just discussed to look online or to request a tax transcript to get a record of any advanced child tax credit payments you received. Let's transition to the next slide and talk about economic impact payments and the recovery rebate credit. The Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department have finished delivering all economic impact payments, EIPs. And these economic impact payments were advance payments of the recovery rebate credit. If you are eligible for the recovery rebate credit, and either we didn't issue you an economic impact payment or we issued less than the full amounts, you can claim the recovery rebate credit on your tax return. Let's talk about timing. Yes, timing. Because the EIPs, there were 3 payments that span 2 years, the 2020 tax year and the 2021 tax year. I'm going to start with the 3rd economic impact payment because individuals who didn't qualify for the 3rd economic impact payment or who did not receive the full amount that they are entitled to are eligible to claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2021 tax return. So the 3rd economic impact payment correlates specifically to the 2021 recovery rebate credit. EIP 1 and 2 were specific to the 2020 tax year. So if you did not receive your 1st or your 2nd economic impact payments, or again, if you received less than you are entitled to, then you would need to claim the recovery rebate credit on your 2020 tax return. So just snapshot, EIP 1 and 2 are specific to the 2020 tax year. Now, 2020 was the tax return most people would have filed last year. So if you have already filed and did not receive the full amount of EIP 1 and or EIP 2, then you may need to file an amended tax return to claim the recovery rebate credit for those amounts. Back to EIP 3, which again, of course, applies to 2021 tax year tax returns, which most of us are gearing up to file now. You will need the amount of the third economic impact payment received and any plus up payments you received to calculate your 2021 recovery rebate credit, which you'll use either the recovery rebate credit worksheet or more likely your tax preparation software. And similar to the child tax credit, the advanced child tax credit payments, the IRS recently sent out a letter. In this case, it is letter 6475, which provides the total amount of the third economic impact payment and any plus up payments that you received. So you'll need that information as well to prepare this year's returns. And remember, only eligible individuals who did not qualify for the third economic impact payment or who did not receive the full amount that they're entitled to should claim the recovery rebate credit on their 2020 tax return. And you can see the website at the top of the slide. It's simply irs.gov/RRC that you can refer to for additional information. And on the next slide, I'm going to wrap up this introductory segment, but I wanted to be sure to mention that some of the rules have changed with the earned income tax credit. This year, the earned income tax credit is worth as much as $6,728 for a family with 3 or more qualifying children. Or it is worth up to $1,502 for taxpayers who do not have a qualifying child. And the only way to receive the earned income tax credit is by filing a tax return and claiming the credit. So even if someone doesn't earn enough income to require them to file a tax return, if they qualify for EITC, they will need to file a return if they want to claim the credit. One specific change I want to mention this year for EITC is the age range to qualify for the credit if you do not have qualifying children. The age range has expanded, again, for people that do not have qualifying children. It's a significant change because not only has the age range expanded, but the maximum credit is nearly tripled for taxpayers without children. For the first time, the credit is now available to both younger workers and senior citizens who work. In the past, the earned income tax credit for those with no dependents was only available to people from age 25 to 64. Now it's available to workers as young as age 19, as well as senior citizens who work. And I could spend another 30 minutes or so just talking about EITC, but since we do want to make sure we have time for your questions, I will refer you to the website at the top of the screen for additional information, and I will turn it back to Congresswoman Lee.
Thank you. Brian, thank you. Wealth of information. I know you could go on every mutation that anyone has on these tax payments, but thank you. That was a good start, and I'm sure we'll have some more detailed questions. In the meantime, I wanted to turn now to Jeremy, who is here with the Taxpayer Advocate Service. Jeremy, could you share with us what services you can provide to people who are tuned in?
Yes, of course. Thanks for having us, Congresswoman Lee. As you know, the Taxpayer Advocate Service, we are an independent organization within the IRS, and this really allows us to be taxpayers' voice at the IRS. Taxpayer Advocate Service, or TAS as we like to call us, We provide free service to all eligible taxpayers. This free service includes individual taxpayers, authorized representatives, businesses, and exempt organizations. There's no income limits for our assistance. Part of what we do is protect taxpayer rights by striving to ensure that all taxpayers are treated fairly and that they know and understand their rights under the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. We also help taxpayers when the IRS can't resolve the issue quickly enough to alleviate a financial hardship. We can also intervene in most cases where there's a system or procedure has either failed to operate as intended or your efforts to resolve the issue with the IRS have fallen short. Now, if you qualify for our help, you'll have an advocate that will be with you at every turn and does everything possible to assist you. Now, in order to obtain our assistance, you can reach our national hotline, which is the number on the screen there, 877-777-4778. Those phone lines are staffed by IRS assisters who will try to resolve your concern, or if they cannot and you meet the criteria for Taxpayer Advocate, they'll refer the case over to Taxpayer Advocate. The phone lines can be a little harder to get through, so you may also come directly to TAS by obtaining a Form 911 on irs.gov and faxing that directly to my office for the Las Vegas Taxpayer Advocate Service. And our fax number is on the screen as well, and that's 855-820-5132. And as always, if you contact Congresswoman Lee's office here in the district, they'll also get us your information so that we can assist in resolving your IRS case. Now, in general, you'd want to come to Taxpayer Advocate if you're experiencing some sort of financial difficulty, emergency, or hardship, and the IRS needs to move much faster than it usually does or even can under its normal procedures. And as I mentioned, if someone has tried to resolve a problem through normal IRS channels, but those channels may be broken down, or the IRS has never responded, or didn't respond by the date that they promised. For basic processing concerns, those things are taking a little bit longer nowadays at the IRS. And in many cases, just being patient and checking the IRS Where's My Refund tool can provide you that status information. For original paper filed return processing, the IRS says they've processed all error-free returns received before April 2021. Now, for amended tax returns, the IRS says they're currently taking about 20 weeks or 5 months to process. So if you're in a financial hardship, Taxpayer Advocate is going to start accepting some of these cases if you filed an amended or original return before June 1st, 2021 for the tax year 2020 or prior. And then on May 17th of this year, Taxpayer Advocate will start accepting cases for amended or original return processing issues regarding the 2021 tax year if a taxpayer is in that financial hardship. Now, in addition to the casework that we provide, we also administer the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic, or LITC grants. LITCs represent individuals whose income is below a certain level and who need to resolve tax problems with the IRS. Now, unlike my staff, who attempts to resolve issues from within the IRS, LITCs can actually represent taxpayers opposite the IRS in audits, appeals, tax collection disputes before the IRS and in court. In addition, LITCs can provide information about taxpayer rights and responsibilities in different languages for individuals who speak English as a second language. In a moment, we'll hear from Pat Smith about volunteer income tax assistance services provided by the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition. They've also recently been awarded the federal grant to provide the LITC services in our area. In addition, TAS also oversees the Taxpayer Advocacy Panel. This is a group of volunteers trying to make the IRS a better place. They take on projects to improve the IRS. So if you have ideas for them or want more information about their services, their website is improveirs.org. Now, if you need more information about the Taxpayer Advocate, our website is taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov. We have several self-help resources on our site, as well as all of our contact information nationwide. Our national taxpayer advocate, Erin Collins, also puts out a blog with helpful information, which you can subscribe to. And we also publish helpful articles on various social media platforms. I'll turn it back over to Congresswoman Lee.
Thank you. Jeremy, thank you so much. And thanks for all that you do with the Taxpayer Advocate Program. Before we turn over to Pat Smith with Nevada Free Taxes Coalition, I want to just remind all the listeners here, if you have a question, please type it in. We will do our best to make sure we answer all the questions. Pat, the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition has been around for many years. And one of the programs you have is the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. Can you talk about how someone who is eligible can get their taxes done for free with the services you provide?
Certainly. They can go to our website and schedule an appointment. There are 13 locations around Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Henderson, and actually we're also in Pahrump. So we're trying to make the service available to as many folks as we can. As long as your income is $58,000 or less, then you could be able to schedule an appointment on our website, which is nvfreetaxes.org, to be able to locate a site that's convenient to you. One of the things we've just rolled out that we're really excited about is our virtual Vita program, in which for folks that are in outerlying areas, Sparks or Reno, they're able to go to our website and be able to upload their documents, and we would still be able to help them remotely. A lot of good information on our website, so all they have to do is visit our website and be able to either schedule an appointment for in-person or be able to access the service virtually.
Thank you so much, Pat. I'm sure there are many taxpayers out there who could use your help. Filing taxes, as we all know, can be complicated. And during this season, especially with the IRS backlog, it's going to be even more complicated. People may be spending, waiting a while to get a refund or answers. And so I'm really happy we were able to put together this webinar to answer some questions so people may be able to expedite their filing. So now let's get to some questions. And as Pat mentioned and Jeremy mentioned, you can always contact my office. And if you do, one of the people on the front line is Jerry Schroeder, who's an amazing caseworker in my office. And Jerry's with us today, and she handles the IRS issues for my congressional office. So Jerry, I'm going to turn it over to you, and hopefully we have some questions that we can answer.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman, and thank you, Brian and Jeremy and Pat, for the information. I have one person who had asked about the links. So Brian, there were some links that you had showed in your PowerPoint presentation, and he had mentioned on, he thinks it's the third slide. So he was wondering if you could put that back up. Is this it? He was wanting to take a photo of this particular page so that way he has this information. I don't have any other questions. I do have one person who needs assistance, and this would be for Alex. If you want to just contact our office, 702-963-9336. And you can just ask for me, Jerry Schroeder, and then I'll be able to assist you with that. But let me see, I think there's another question. Let's see. Okay, so this person received PUA unemployment this year. Last year, for 2020, the first $10,200 were waived for taxes. And this person would like to know if the IRS and Congress will pass legislation for 2021 to provide free tax assistance.
Hi, I'll answer the Congress end of things. There is not it's not on the docket yet. I'm sure people are discussing it right now. So we will reach out to you if there's any progress being made on extending this break that we did provide back in 2020.
Okay, thank you. And we have another question. I need help filing back taxes. Will the Nevada Free Taxes Coalition help with filing current and back taxes?
Yes, actually, we can go back to 2016 to be able to file back taxes. So as long as they bring us all of the information, so far as their income documents, things like that, we can get them taken care of. We can get them current.
Okay, great. I don't have any questions, but I do have one thing that people ask our office all the time. Because of the backlog with with processing income tax returns for 2020. I have people who have asked, should I go ahead and file my 2021 income tax return, or do I need to wait for the IRS to finish processing the 2020 income tax return? So I think Brian, you probably be either Brian or Jemry be best to answer that question for people.
I'd be happy to field that question. The first part of the question is, yes, please go ahead and file your 2021 tax return. We do have, and I would like to take a moment to talk about IRS operations during COVID-19. Several of us have mentioned the backlog and where we are at this current juncture in terms of entering the new filing season, but you can go ahead and file your 2021 tax return. You may run into an issue when you sign the return, is my only caveat, because sometimes you need to enter your adjusted gross income from the prior year return to sign it. So if your return is not in the system and is not processed, there are workarounds where it may be as simple as entering 0 in that amount. And I know Pat and Jeremy are familiar with that protocol. Mm-hmm. So yes, do not delay. If you have all your records and are prepared, again, to file a complete and correct tax return, don't hesitate, file electronically, get it in the system and work through that. Now, as far as IRS operations during what we call mission critical operations during COVID-19, number one, we are open and processing mail. We are processing tax returns, payments, refunds, and correspondence. But of course, COVID-19, it continues to cause delays for some taxpayers in terms of our services and processing. I think most people would agree they've seen the impact on our live telephone supports, as well as processing tax returns filed on paper or answering mail, snail mail from taxpayers and reviewing tax returns. That's why our emphasis today is to do as much as you can electronically, use the online tools, file electronically, direct deposit, get the automated transcripts over to telephone. There's a slew of online tools available for you to use. Now, again, we are opening the mail within normal time frames. We do have a backlog of tax returns. We essentially have processed all the returns received as of April 21 and prior. We currently have approximately 6 million unprocessed individual returns in our queue and another 2.3 million unprocessed amended returns. Someone brought up the unemployment compensation. There's a handful of individuals where we are continuing to review the 2020 returns and process corrections for taxpayers who paid taxes on unemployment compensation. And now we're working through to exclude that compensation from their income if eligible. So we have continued our ongoing efforts to provide additional help for people during this period. We very recently just announced that we have suspended more than a dozen notices, including many balance due letters, and we have reallocated, redeployed numerous resources, including many employees, to help work through this backlog. And we're trying to implement innovative strategies until this backlog is resolved. So we ask for anyone who is impacted by these delays to please be patient. Do not file a second tax return. Use the online services. Just keep checking, where's my refund? Where's my amended return when appropriate? And if you receive a letter, just timely respond to the letter. Again, all of our employees continue to expend every effort to balance a confluence of multiple unprecedented demands that we're dealing with, including successfully starting this filing season in conjunction with working through those unprocessed returns and finding additional ways to help reduce taxpayer burden. So I don't know if Jeremy, if you have anything you'd like to add on. It's been COVID-19 has had an impact on all of us, including the processing of tax returns.
Absolutely. Jeremy, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, definitely. There's definitely been processing delays. And, as to the point with the unemployment, the last statistic that we got from the IRS was that they still have about 1 million people's tax returns that they need to get adjusted to get the unemployment off. But just remember, if there is any credit that might have changed because of that adjustment, you do need to file that amended return so that you can get that extra credit. Your credit might have gone up because your income limit changed. And so that's an amended return that's needed in order to grab that credit, because they are only automatically adjusting the unemployment portion down. And that's, for the 2020 income tax returns. And I know I saw a question about, being taxed on unemployment for 2021. And as the Congresswoman mentioned, there was not legislation passed, to exclude that unemployment compensation for the 2021 year.
All right, so the next question is, I have not contributed to my solo 401k in 2021. Is there any tax return actions I need to take?
Is this one coming to me, I guess?
I guess, yeah.
We're kind of after the fact because the 2021 tax return tax year has already ended. And it's 401k has different tax law provisions than things such as an IRA, an individual retirement account, where there can be, where the contribution period can be extended into the next year. But with 401k contributions, the general rule is the year has ended. And in fact, the time frame for your employer then to report to issue your W-2 and show how much was reported as contributed to the 401k is also passed. So we're a little after the fact. We can take this question in more detail offline, but you should already have your W-2 that shows your contributions to the 401k. I hate to give, I don't really want to expand upon it because this is unique to your specific facts and circumstances. But again, we'd be happy to follow up with it offline and go over any details and cover it that way.
The next question we have, if your tax bill is so high that I am not able to pay anymore as the tax keeps growing because I work harder to earn more, fairness in me parting with my hard-earned dollars, could I claim illegal alien status or any other reason? I'm not quite sure about what the question is there.
I'll try to tackle that from a standpoint of making payments and just some best practices. Number one, if you owe a significant amount of money on your tax return, you still need to file by April 18th. Do not delay your filing of the tax return. The filing of the tax return and the paying of the taxes are two separate issues. You still need to file by April 18th. And if you do not, the penalties for not filing on the unpaid tax amount, the taxes due by April 18th, the penalties if you don't file are significantly higher than if you do file and then set up a payment plan or a payment arrangement or something of that nature. So the first issue is to address the balance due you have currently. The second issue is to address why this happened. And you need to do, or I would recommend that you do a check to see why enough tax is not being withheld from your pay, or you may have an estimated tax payment requirement. We have an online tool, a federal income tax withholding tool, where you can go in, enter your data, and it will tell you how much you should be having withheld. That second step, you need to address the first part about paying what is owed now. That's historic, but moving forward for this year, you don't want to end up in a situation where you have a series of years where you keep owing year after year. You want to have an adequate amount withheld. As far as the alien status or things like that, that is really outside the scope of this. I'm not going to address discussing the legality of the tax system and the 16th Amendment and all the legal protocol that has been clearly established in the courts. I'll leave that to, there's another division in the IRS that handles those cases.
And Brian, I think it's really important to note if there are people who are struggling with a past due balance that they owe the IRS, the IRS has a myriad of programs that they can help you get into a payment plan that's reasonable and affordable for you. There's also what's called an offer in compromise, where if you're just never going to be able to get out from that mountain of past due taxes you have, they might be willing to work out with you a negotiated amount that's reasonable and affordable for you, so you can get out from under that. And those plans and all that information is right on irs.gov. They just have a lot of help that's out there if you are struggling to pay a past due balance. And part of all of those programs is you keep current on the current year, you keep paying your current taxes. But if you just are struggling really with stuff that's past due from past years, tons of programs to help you get current. And if you are struggling with any of those programs with the IRS, reach out to one of us, because we definitely can get you in touch with the right area and get you into the right programs to come back into compliance and to come current.
That's a great point, by the way. And just to tag on to that, not only the offer and compromise for people who don't really have a financial ability to pay based on their income expenses. Another program, just for example, we have seen scenarios where one spouse in a married filing joint relationship may be negatively impacted by the other spouse's financial activity. We have a program for injured spouse claims as well, where they may not have known about the income or things like that. So, to paraphrase Jeremy, a myriad of options for you. You just need to reach out to us. So let us help you.
Okay. The next question is, are we taxed on unemployment for 2021?
Yeah, and Jerry, I think I grabbed that question ahead of you. I apologize, but yeah, there's no exclusion for 2021, as the Congressman stated.
And then I have another question that says, can I take a tax holiday? This person
will skip that one as well, Jerry.
Okay, and then let's see. Someone filed unemployment in my name, and my unemployment was delayed for 5 months. I had to cash my 401k and just to live. Any exemptions available for certain circumstances?
Jeremy, I don't know if you want to tackle that. I'd be happy to address it.
Brian, if you can, for the early withdrawal penalty and things, if there's exceptions to that.
Life happens, especially during COVID-19. Many people across the country were negatively impacted by this and had to access their funds in retirement accounts. So when you withdraw the funds, oftentimes there is a penalty for withdrawing those funds early before you're eligible. There are certain retirement ages depending on the type of account, et cetera. You would have to report and pay it, the tax, or not pay it. You would have to report the income and the penalty on the tax return, et cetera. And then at that point, once the return is processed and the penalty assessed, several options are available. Number one, not only the payment plans and things addressed to that nature, but there is a process to request what is called a penalty abatement. There is a form specifically for that scenario. There are several provisions under recent tax legislation. We can look at the CARES Act on when this can be forgiven, specifically when it's related to COVID-19 and the coronavirus. So you might need to seek assistance from a tax professional, or maybe Pat and her folks can help you out, or the advocate. And even at the IRS, we can point you to many of those resources. There's also a provision, Jeremy mentioned the offer and compromise. If that doesn't apply, there is generally an offer and compromise is most commonly used when someone does not have an ability to pay, where we look at their income and their expenses and the numbers simply don't add up. But there is another provision under the offer and compromise guidelines where it's in the best interest of tax administration, just using it in general tax administration. So several options there. Again, this is unique to your specific scenario. And if you like any one of us, or including Jerry on the line, we'd be happy to follow up and point you in the right direction and get you more resources on that. Absolutely.
Well, I don't have any other questions. I do have, though, I've worked on some cases that had to do with fraud, because somebody else had filed an income tax return trying to get the refund, but it wasn't that person. And they're not aware of it until they're asking, where's my refund? So what kind of advice can you give to people about if they're a victim of identity theft, what could they do?
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but identity theft is a topic very near and dear to my heart. Now, the first thing is, let's distinguish between tax-related identity theft and regular identity theft in the general public, because if you're a victim, you're going to have to deal with both of those items. So first, if you are a victim of tax-related identity theft, sometimes you will find out about it first, sometimes a third-party entity such as the IRS will notify you about it. Tax returns, if your tax return is filed this year and you are identified as being a potential victim of identity theft, those returns can take up to 260 days or 280 days. I think Jeremy will concur, because there's a whole authentication and verification process we have to go through to make things right. So if you're a victim, number one, be patient. If you're a victim, you will need to file the IRS Identity Theft Affidavit. It is a form 14059. And again, I can provide that to you separately, Jerry, so you can post it when this goes live.
Brian, let me just intervene.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. It's 14039.
39. I couldn't remember if it was a 5 or a 3. 14039. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
And by filing that identity theft affidavit, that will start the process. As that works its way through the system, once that claim is processed and we make everything right, if you are a confirmed victim of tax-related identity theft, we will place you in what is called the IP PIN program, the Identity Protection Personal Identification Number program, where after we verify your identity address, every year you will receive a unique 6-digit code, which will be required to file and process your return. And that, in essence, is how we stem the identity theft on that end. One quick note is we have opened up the IP PIN to everyone nationwide. So if anyone listening, if you're not a victim, we strongly recommend that you register online. You can go to irs.gov/get-an-IP-PIN and register and voluntarily opt into the IP PIN program to get that 6-digit number, which will prevent the perpetrators, these thieves, from filing a return under your name and social security number. That addresses the tax-related side, but keep in mind, if you're a victim of identity theft, tax-related crimes are only the beginning. It almost always spills over to your personal life, where the perpetrators will file for fraudulent credit cards, bank accounts, student loans, utility bills, get driver's license. It's a myriad. And one key resource I would recommend is to go to identitytheft.gov, and that's a site worked in conjunction with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. A bunch of information there, but if you're a confirmed victim, we recommend that you put a security freeze or a credit freeze on your credit profile with the credit reporting bureaus. That's Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, and you kind of lock down your credit profile so the thieves can't commit those crimes. So if you lock down your credit profile and your tax profile, you handcuff the thieves. They can't do anything without those secret codes to access it. I don't want to go too long into that because I'll give you a 1-hour dissertation. Jeremy or Pat, do you have anything you want to add?
Brian, I think it's important to also note that irs.gov has some excellent information about this. I mean, really, if you get there to the website, they've got a search bar at the top right, just type identity theft. And they have a taxpayer guide to identity theft that not only has the link to that identitytheft.gov, has the link to the form 14039 identity theft affidavit, but also these cases are worked by a specialized unit at the IRS so that they can give priority to them. And so if you've submitted that already, you're just not sure what's happening, they even list that department's direct phone number, which is different than just the general phone numbers at the IRS, so that you can get in contact with somebody to help you with this, because we know that that's so distressing when you're going through that.
And I believe that the IRS is now getting more specific on ensuring that the ID is correct. So they have a new, when you have your account, when you go into your account, that there's going to be this ID me that's going to be able to help with ensuring that there's no identity theft and that it really is the person. So one person asked, will you please put up the website for where's my refund, or was it on the first page? So that's the irs.gov you just go to where's my refund. So the last question we have here is, what is the difference between marginal and effective tax rates?
I almost prefer to cite something from the code or one of our website or the official guidance resources. Marginal versus effective tax rates. You have marginal or graduated tax rates based on your income, where your first segment of income is not taxed at all. Your next segment is taxed at 10%. Your next segment is taxed at 15%. Your next segment is taxed at 25%, et cetera. Versus your effective tax rate, where if you made a total of $50,000 last year and you paid $5,000 in tax, 10% of your total income went to tax. That's effectively what you're paying versus the graduated rates that are built into the Internal Revenue Code. And again, you can go to the tax tables. You can see there's various resources on irs.gov. I don't know if Jeremy, you want to add on to that, or are we?
No, I think you covered the difference quite well there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then just really quick, this last question, and this is going to be the last question because we're running out of time. How do I contact the IRS to ask a question? Now, I know that the irs.gov has got a ton of answers for questions, which helps with millions of people calling the IRS a day, because I know it's very difficult to get through on the IRS website. But the question is, how do I contact the IRS to ask a question?
I think that this one's, one that's important to really know that it is difficult to reach the IRS. And, the National Taxpayer Advocate issued her annual report to Congress and stated that about 11% of calls were answered in fiscal year 2021. So you're going to have a very hard time getting a hold of a representative on a phone line. But if you do need that assistance, and you definitely try, their phone number is, it's 1-800-TAX-FORM, or I'm sorry, it's 1-800 tax 1040. So 1-800-829-1040 is the general IRS phone line. They do have phone assisters, that are answering those calls. They are working, as much overtime to try to answer those calls as they can. They're open, I believe it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. our time. And so, you can get to those later in the day. I see the comments that there's, they need to hire quality employees, and they are hiring. And so, they announce jobs through usajobs.gov. They're hiring as fast as they can to bring on more assisters to help you. But that is where the assistance is obtained on the phone lines. But you have the other resources. You have our office. You've got Congresswoman Lee's office, as we've mentioned. If you just have a problem that just can't get resolved at the IRS, please come forward, let us know so that we can get you that assistance.
And Jeremy, if I could just tag on to that real quick, the 1-800-829-1040 is the most common number. We have implemented a callback service on, I believe, at least 16 of our telephone lines right now, where many taxpayers are queued if they prefer to have a callback, and then we'll give a range where we call back usually within 3 to 5 minutes of that window. We have separate phone numbers for specific issues, such as Taxpayer Advocate service. We have a dedicated phone line for economic impact payments, for advanced child tax credit payments. We have a refund hotline, an amendment return hotline I could go over. I've got a whole laundry list. I'll provide it to Jerry here. And I also want to mention, don't forget our walk-in offices, the taxpayer assistance centers. Now, they only help with a certain range, limited topics. But if you're within one of those topics, you certainly can call. You have to schedule an appointment, make an appointment, and then go in for an in-person visit. And we've expanded hours on many of those walk-in offices, the taxpayer assistance centers. We have Saturday service now as well. So again, this is part of our effort to address these issues.
Thank you. Congresswoman, I'll go ahead and turn it over back to you.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. I just want to thank Brian, Pat, and Jeremy again for being here, for all of your information you provided. You've answered so many great questions, and I hope everyone listening has gotten the information they need. And if you need additional help, you can always reach out to my office, 702-963-9336, or go to susielee.house.gov. We will include some of the links that were mentioned here today. My website has many resources to offer you assistance and any information you may need. Also, irs.gov obviously is another key source of information. Again, thanks to my three panelists. Thank you all for joining. And like I said, if you first and foremost get those tax forms filled out as soon as possible. And we're wishing you the best of luck. Have a great day. Thanks.